The story of Ehud, found in Judges 3:12-30, is one of the most dramatic and action-packed narratives in the Bible. Ehud was a judge of Israel, chosen by God to deliver the Israelites from the oppression of the Moabites. The story is brief, but filled with intrigue, cunning, and divine intervention. To expand this into a detailed and long narrative, I'll add historical context, character development, and imaginative elements to create a fuller story. Chapter 1. The darkness over Israel. The land of Israel was in turmoil. The once united tribes had fallen into disobedience, turning away from the commandments of Yahweh and embracing the idolatrous practices of the surrounding nations. The people worshipped the As and Asherahs, forsaking the God who had brought them out of Egypt and into the promised land. In response to their unfaithfulness, God allowed the Moabites, led by their king Eglon, to oppress Israel. The Moabites allied with the Ammonites and the Amalekites, forming a powerful coalition that swept across the land, subjugating the Israelites and exacting heavy tribute. For 18 long years, Israel groaned under the weight of Moabite oppression, their spirits crushed, and their once prosperous lands turned into a symbol of their despair. The people of Israel cried out to the Lord in their distress, pleading for deliverance. God, ever merciful, heard their cries and prepared to raise up a deliverer judge who would rescue them from their enemies and restore the land to its former glory. Chapter 2. The rise of Ehud. Ehud was a man of Benjamin, a tribe known for its warriors. He was a man of stature and strength. But what set him apart from others was a unique characteristic. Ehud was left-handed. In a society where right-handedness was the norm, Ehud's left-handedness was often seen as a disadvantage. Yet it would become his greatest asset. Ehud was deeply troubled by the plight of his people. The once proud Israelites were now reduced to paying tribute to a foreign king, their lands ravaged, and their freedom stripped away. But Ehud was not one to sit idly by while his people suffered. He was a man of action, a man with a deep sense of justice and an unwavering faith in Yahweh. Ehud's mind was sharp, and he was a man of cunning. He knew that to defeat the Moabites, he would need to rely on more than just brute strength. And so, as he prayed for guidance, a plan began to form in his mind, a plan that would require both courage and deception. Chapter 3. The tribute to Eglon. Each year, the Israelites were required to pay tribute to King Eglon of Moab. The tribute was a humiliating reminder of their subjugation, a procession of goods and wealth carried from the heart of Israel to the Moabite capital. This year, Ehud was chosen to lead the delegation that would deliver the tribute. As Ehud prepared for the journey, he crafted a double-edged dagger, about a cubit in length, with a keen blade. The dagger was small enough to be concealed, but deadly in its design. Ehud strapped the dagger to his right thigh. Underneath his clothing a plow here no one would think to search. It was assumed that any warrior would draw his weapon with his right hand, with the dagger hidden and his resolve steeled. Ehud set out with the tribute. The journey to the Moabite capital was long and arduous, but Ehud's thoughts were focused on his mission. He knew that this was no ordinary tribute. This was the moment when he would strike a blow for his people, a blow that would change the course of their history. Chapter 4. The assassination of Eglon. Upon arriving at the Moabite capital, Ehud and his delegation were brought before King Eglon. The Moabite king was a man of great size, corpulent and complacent. a symbol of the excesses of power. He sat on his throne, surrounded by opulence, confident in his domination over the Israelites. Ehud presented the tribute, bowing low before the king. The goods were laid out in a display of wealth, but beneath his outward humility, Ehud's heart burned with the fire of his mission. The tribute was delivered, and Ehud's delegation was dismissed, their task seemingly complete. But as they began their journey back, Ehud turned back alone. He approached the king's court and requested a private audience with Eglon, claiming that he had a secret message for the king. Intrigued, Eglon dismissed his attendants. Eager to hear what this Israelite had to say, the room was cleared, and Ehud was left alone with the Moabite king. As Ehud approached, he said, "I have a message from God for you." But what he received instead was swift and dead. With his left hand, Ehud drew the concealed dagger and plunged it deep into Eglon's belly. The blade sank in so far that even the hilt was swallowed by the king's flesh, and the fat closed over it. Eglon collapsed to the ground, dead, his life extinguished in an instant. The room was silent, the opulent surroundings now a tomb. Ehud acted quickly, locking the doors of the chamber before making his escape. He knew that he had only moments before the king's attendants would discover what had happened. Chapter 5. The Escape and the Signal. Ehud fled from the palace, moving swiftly through the city streets. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with the urgency of his mission. He had struck the first blow, but the work was far from over. He needed to return to his people and lead them to victory. As Ehud reached the hills of Ephraim, he blew a loud trumpet, a signal that rallied the Israelite warriors. The men of Israel, who had been waiting in anticipation, gathered around him. Ehud, standing before them with the fire of a prophet and the determination of a warrior, declared, "Follow me, for the Lord has given your enemies the Moabites into your hand." The Israelites, inspired by Ehud's courage and the knowledge that their oppressor was dead, surged forward. They descended upon the Moabites with the ferocity of a people who had been oppressed for too long, striking down the enemy forces with a righteous fury. Chapter 6. The battle and the victory pursued the Moabites to the fords of the Jordan River. They seized the strategic crossings, cutting off the Moabites' escape route with their retreat blocked. The Moabite forces were trapped, and the Israelites launched a relentless attack. The battle was fierce, but the hand of Yahweh was with Israel. The Moabites, leaderless and demoralized, fell before the Israelites. That day, 10,000 Moabite warriors were slain, every one of them a strong and valiant man. The land was littered with the bodies of the fallen, a testament to the might of the God of Israel and the courage of his chosen deliverer. The victory was complete, and the Moabite oppression was broken. The Israelites recline, and their lands, and their freedom, and the name of Ehud was etched into the annals of Israel's history as a hero and a deliverer. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. With the Moabites defeated, the land of Israel experienced a period of peace that lasted for 80 years. Ehud, now recognized as a judge over Israel, led the people with wisdom and strength. Under his leadership, the tribes of Israel were united, and the worship of Yahweh was restored. Ehud's story became a legend, told and retold around campfires and in the homes of the Israelites. His cunning, his bravery, and his faith in God were celebrated as examples of what it meant to be a true leader of Israel. Yet, despite the peace that Ehud had brought, he knew that the cycle of disobedience, oppression, could easily return if the people did not remain faithful to their covenant with God. Ehud spent the rest of his life reminding the Israelites of their duty to Yahweh, urging them to stay true to the laws that had been given to them. Ehud's legacy was one of faith and deliverance, a reminder that even in the darkest times, God would raise up a deliverer for his people. His story was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of faith and the importance of obedience to God. Chapter 8. The legacy of the left-handed warrior. Ehud's legacy lived on long after his death. His story was told to generations of Israelites as a reminder of God's deliverance and the unexpected ways in which he could save his people. Ehud's left-handedness, once seen as a potential weakness, became a symbol of how God uses what the world sees as weakness to accomplish his purposes. As Israel faced future challenges and enemies, the story of Ehud continued to inspire. His willingness to act, his cunning plan, and his absolute faith in God were qualities that the Israelites sought to emulate in their own lives. In the years that followed, Israel would face many more oppressors, but the memory of Ehud's victory over the Moabites remained a powerful reminder that no enemy, no matter how strong, could stand against the God of Israel. Ehud's name became synonymous with deliverance and justice, and his story was a cornerstone of Israel's identity as a people, chosen and protected by God. And so the story of Ehud, the left-handed warrior, became a lasting part of Israel's heritage, a story of faith, courage, and the unexpected ways in which God works through his chosen servants to bring about his will. This expanded narrative takes the concise story of Ehud and enriches it with additional context, character development, and imaginative elements to create a more immersive and detailed story. It captures the drama, tension, and divine intervention that are central to the biblical account while providing a deeper look into the characters and their motivations.